This problem. I'm sorry?
Ready to get started?
Let's get started. Okay, so I have a couple slides myself, and I want to talk real quick. This is an IGEL Community webinar, and if you're not familiar with the IGEL Community, I want to just take a couple seconds or a couple minutes here to sort of share with you what we're doing. Really, the goal of the IGEL Community was to take our partners and our customers and EUC experts and really anyone that wants to learn more about IGEL and give them a place to learn, a technical place to learn. I always say, you know, companies have their official marketing and their official, you know, they cater to salespeople and the business leaders and what have you. But the guys that I always felt really matter are the technologists. But yet they're not always the ones that get all the attention. I wanted to give them the attention. I wanted to give them the resources that they needed to learn, to collaborate, to grow technically, and to also get help. So we built the IGEL Community. We built it using Slack. And if you're not familiar with Slack, Slack is one of the best communication tools. It's sort of instant messenger meets IRC, meets email, all rolled up into one and modernized. It's very easy to use, follow, and it doesn't create sort of clutter and too much. So that being said, you know, if you join the IGEL Community, what do you get? Dan, can you flip the slides real quick? Well, basically, by joining, we're going to keep you up to date with what's latest. You know, if there's announcements like IGEL OS 11, we're going to let you know about it. We're going to let you know what's in it. We're just basically going to keep you up to date. If there's a new private build, if there's a new white paper, if there's new anything, we're going to keep you up to date on that. Like I said, we use Slack for the community itself. And this is where you're going to be able to log in and join and talk with people in real time. In fact, I had to close down Slack just now because the people are talking and it's sending messages to me. I monitor everything. So it's a great place to join and be part of a community in the truest sense of the word. We'll share upcoming and also archived technical webinars with you. For example, this one, right? This is an IGEL Community webinar, and we'll be doing more of these. We have one on Windows Virtual Desktop coming up in a few weeks, and one on VR, and one with and so many more. Latest technical documentation and white papers. Again, if there's something new, we're going to share that with you. We even have a GitHub repository. IGEL has a nice, what we call the IMI. It's an API. And so one of our community members actually created a GitHub repository for us where we can share information back and forth or tips and tricks, scripts, things of that nature via GitHub. We have getting started guides. So if you're new to IGEL and you say, well, this is really neat stuff, I want to try this out. We've written, the community has written very simple screenshot by screenshot guides on exactly how to install the product. It's a little bit different than you would find from traditional corporate documentation. It's community documentation. And it has tons of links out to learn more and pointing you to all these white papers and knowledge base articles and things of that nature. And of course, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The community, right now, we're about 1,500 members and 27,000 messages within the past year. It's a great place to be if you want to learn more, if you want to keep up to date with IGEL. The IGEL community is where you need to, where you need to be. Dan, one more slide.
Yeah.
So you might ask, how do you join? Thank you so much. And please go to join.igelcommunity.com. Again, join.igelcommunity.com. And go ahead, Dan. The next slide is the most important slide. And you might have heard in the past about IGEL giving away a Tesla. In fact, we gave away 2 Teslas and made a big splash. We're the company that gave away a $140,000 car and then another big ticket car. And this year we came back and said, okay, let's do that again. So this year we're giving away the Porsche Taycan. Am I saying that right, Dan?
I think so.
Say that.
Taycan, yeah.
So people might, I get the question quite often, why is why are you giving away a car? That sounds really neat, but what's the deal here? And it's definitely, it's a great giveaway, right? But there's a bigger story here, and it comes do with the fact that what the car is and what the Tesla was and what the Porsche is, it's really a computer. This is an electric car. It's not your typical, combustion engine car where you turn it on, you run it, and you monitor it, right? You don't really change an old 1950s or 60s car. It runs. Where a modern computer car is completely monitored, controlled, updated, everything in real time. So for example, the Tesla, I like to give the example that if you bought a Tesla a few years ago, it's actually today something like 1.2, 1.3 seconds faster. How did a car get faster? That's never the case. My cars always get slower, muckier, guckier, what have you. But because it's a computer, because it's really the genius of the car itself is of course it's beautiful, but the genius is the software. And it's the fact that you can keep the car, you can make it better, you can optimize it, and in return make it faster. Another example I like to give is during the hurricanes a few years ago, Tesla was able to look and say, we need to get a little bit more juice out of this engine because these guys need to escape from Miami and get all the way up to Georgia. So they figured out, they did some magic, and they figured out, hey, if we optimize this and that, we can give them a little bit more charge, and they can go more miles to this charge. So they actually made that change in real time. They flashed the car, and as the driver was driving up the road, he found that he was being able to get a longer distance. And again, the beauty here is the software. And we at IGEL believe this is exactly what we are. Of course, traditionally you think of us as selling hardware, but really the hardware was just the body. The genius was in the software. So giving away a car makes a lot of sense for us because the Tesla, the Porsche, is just like an IGEL, and we're just as beautiful and sexy. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Dan. Do you have anything else to say about the Porsche giveaway?
No, I think it's, and by the way, this is still the clearest picture of a Taycan that we can get. They're very, very mysterious about it. So it's a classic kind of mysterious marketing ploy on their part, which is very effective. But, I think the analogy is great. This is even the automobile industry, right? I think Audi announced that all their upcoming cars by like 2022, it's going to be all electric. And I think it has to do with the fact that these four-wheeled vehicles are becoming software defined. I think that's the automakers are discovering that the software defined approach is, fast to market, enables innovation, and is the way you really differentiate yourself. So it's pretty much not unlike what we're doing here at IGEL, right? Which is, moving toward software defined. It's all about the software. And what we're announcing with IGEL OS 11 is taking it up a notch in terms of how we're positioning the product and offering it while still staying true to our mantra, which is simple, smart, and secure, right? So the idea here behind IGEL OS 11, which is, by the way, now downloadable from igel.com, is to make it even easier for our customers to acquire and our partners to offer our technology. Smarter in that the way we are now structuring the offers gives our customers more flexibility in how and where they deploy our technology. And then, the security is kind of in our veins, right? The security is first and foremost why people move to this method of software-defined endpoints, is to keep Windows in the data center where it belongs and make your endpoints as lightweight and as nimble and as secure as possible. So, and then when you look at our community of partners, which is 80 strong and growing, many of them are in the work in the areas, offer technology in the areas of single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, et cetera, to make enterprise estates even more secure. So what we'll be talking about, while some of it is new, it still rings true to kind of the cornerstone, mantra of IGEL, which is simple, smart, and secure. So the whole idea here is to simplify, and what you will notice is that if you had looked at the old the previous IGEL line card if you're dealing with a partner, or our overall list of offers. We've gone basically from 19 separate SKUs to 3. So it's a vast reduction in the number of line items from which you need to choose to kind of craft your solution. We believe that this, in turn, vastly simplifies the process by which customers order and acquire our technology. We're also offering more flexibility in how the software is not only acquired, but owned and used throughout the duration of its life. And we'll talk a little bit about some new capabilities in terms of a subscription option for some of the more value-added capabilities. And by the way, Doug, we're going to make sure we've got some time. We should have time toward the end. And if you guys do have questions, you can submit them through that question panel on your GoToMeeting. And we've been talking about software, and that really is what distinguishes us. If you think of IGEL, and I've been with IGEL for about 6 months now, and I was on the outside looking in. And one thing that I think most of us will agree with is that IGEL does a pretty good job of social. We're out there on LinkedIn. Doug works here with our community. So we're fairly visible from a social standpoint. And I was on the outside watching IGEL. And the one message I kept getting over and over again as an admirer was simple and easy. Simple, simple, simple. The simplicity, however, comes from the genius of the software. That's what makes it so simple. And it's specifically IGEL OS and the UMS, kind of our 2 cornerstone pieces of software, which work hand in glove with each other from end to end to make it as easy as possible for those IT administrators who are responsible for endpoints to not only make sure all those endpoints are imaged correctly and are appropriate for their usage, but can also massively scale. So it's the software that makes all this happen. And we believe that the way that software is licensed can be of great benefit to both our partners and our customers to allow them to more easily acquire it and be able to take advantage of it. So what exactly is happening? Essentially, what we're doing is we're kind of moving up, taking up our offers, taking it up a notch, if you will, to offer our software in a way that is more at par with the way world-class enterprise software companies offer their products. So it's kind of a modernization and streamlining. The crude analogy I'm making here is it's sort of like going from a single-engine stunt plane to a sophisticated fighter pilot, however, keeping it extremely simple. So I'll explain that here. What it really means is by simplifying the ordering and acquisition process, we believe we're going to make life a lot easier for those who are responsible for managing their endpoint estate throughout their enterprise. The way we're packaging the software now, we believe will give you more value per investment, right? Whether it's euros or dollars, wherever you're located, you'll get more from your order, from those specific SKUs, more capability, more functionality, more flexibility in how you choose to implement our technology throughout your enterprise. And then it's really more enterprise class. It's kind of the way the large classic software providers offer their software. I think you'll notice if you're buying software from the likes of the big database providers or the big CRM or ERP type software companies, you'll see some similarities in the overall structure now. So it'll be not unlike how organizations are already buying their enterprise software. So what's happening? Well, if you think about it, right? I mean, traditionally, if you're a member of the community, you're probably already very familiar with our thin clients. And by the way, our hardware remains world-class, and we will continue to improve and come out with new models and new versions of our endpoints. So that doesn't change. But traditionally, right, you would buy a UD3 or a UD7 or a UD6 or UD2 or whatever it is, and it would have the software on it, and you would merely just turn it on with your license. And what's happening now with IGEL OS 11 is we are separating the hardware from the software. So going forward, if you wish to put your IGEL software on an IGEL hardware platform, you will buy them separately. And this rings true with our overall positioning, since our IGEL OS can run on any compatible 64-bit x86 device. You know, lots of customers love the fact that they can prolong the useful life of their endpoints. You know, maybe you've got a bunch of PCs from HP or laptops from Lenovo, or even thin clients, wise thin clients from Dell. If you want to fold them all in under a common management system and continue to extend the life of those devices, some of which may be fully depreciated, this is a great way to do it, right, with IGEL OS. So as a result, we're separating it out because you may or may not choose to buy hardware from us, and we're going to provide, you know, kind of this ability to buy the software in two forms. The base software, which turns any x86 into an IGEL managed endpoint, we now call Workspace Edition. And this basically replaces, if you're familiar with UDC, UDC will go away, and it now is encompassed, that functionality is now encompassed in what we call Workspace Edition. So by buying licenses in a pool of Workspace Edition, and it's perpetual, so when you buy a Workspace Edition license, you own it forever, and with software maintenance, you get all the updates and upgrades, etc. Now, if you want more capability on a subset of all those IGEL managed endpoints, since they have Workspace Edition on them already, you can also add more capabilities in the form of some UMS extensions, and we call that Enterprise Management Pack. And that's actually a subscription, right? So you've got your base edition, which is Workspace Edition, which turns it into an IGEL managed endpoint. And then you have a subscription if you wish to add more functionality to the Enterprise Management Pack. OS 11, this release of OS 11 encompasses all of these new capabilities, these new changes in the product structure. So after seeing this, you might be wondering to yourself, okay, this is new, right? I've been buying thin clients from IGEL for a long time. You know, what's the deal with the perpetual mixed with subscription? And it goes back to my earlier discussion on elevating how we offer our software more in accordance with how world-class software companies operate. So it's no different than buying Windows 10 and adding other software on top of it. It's actually no different than buying Windows Server and then folding on software subscriptions that could either be resident on those servers, or maybe it's a cloud-based subscription. So while it's a new way to acquire IGEL technology products, it certainly is not a new way of acquiring software for any company that's familiar with enterprise software from you know, the world's top software providers. And it really is kind of the standard approach. And we believe with the extra value and the extra functionality built into these SKUs, our members of the community, our customers, will get more value out of for their budget, and we'll have a little bit more flexibility in how and where they deploy some of those extra capabilities by subscription. The nice thing about a subscription is you have the flexibility to purchase a 1, 3, or 5-year subscription. You can try something out for a year. You may or may not elect to extend it for another year or 3. And what's new in this release is we have what we call license roaming, which is a great way to move licenses from one device to the other. So we talked about licensing, and the way the licenses now work is through what we call the IGEL license portal. And this is each customer gets their own view of their licenses. So for example, if you buy 500 licenses, You then can view them in a pool through this licensing portal. So each customer sees only their licenses. It's a cloud-based service. And from that pool of licenses, from that purchase, they can then select licenses. The ILP communicates with the customer's UMS, and from the UMS, they can actually then assign the licenses that will reside on their endpoints of choice, either an x86 device from some other vendor or one of our great hardware endpoint platforms. Once they're assigned, those licenses reside on that device, and we treat all devices the same. So it doesn't matter if it's an IGEL UD3 or a Lenovo laptop or an HP PC. As far as the license portal is concerned and the UMS is concerned, these are all kind of, equal capability target endpoints. Software maintenance is needed to make sure you get, future upgrades and updates, etc. And the through the license portal in the UMS, you can see the status of the maintenance for all of your licenses as well. So at this one spot, you can basically do easy and comprehensive management of all the licenses that you have purchased to date. So we think this is another way that things will get much easier for our customers. I've already given a hint on this, so the question is, right, little pop quiz, what does an organic free-range chicken and IGEL OS 11 software have in common? I'll give you a few seconds to mull that over.
I don't know.
Well, the answer is they can both roam. Right, just like this free-range chicken on the beach and who knows some exotic location, he can roam, as can our licenses. And this is really, really, important. Not only, does IGEL OS 11 have the ability to reside on any x86 device, which is great, right? You can get great use of your current hardware, not overhaul anything, and not have to, go through that dreaded 3 or 4 year hardware refresh cycle, which is not only expensive, can cost large organizations millions of dollars, but it's extremely disruptive, right? So by moving licenses between endpoints, now imagine an M&A activity, or imagine a company reorganizing or right-sizing, whatever it is. This gives our customers even greater flexibility in terms of getting the absolute most out of all of their hardware, IGEL branded or not. So let's go into a little bit of detail. I'm not going to go into nauseating detail, but I do want to give you guys just a high-level summary of what these two primary product SKUs are now, right? And the first one that we call Workspace Edition should look really familiar to you. It's really just more of the same. It's the same way you've been getting software on your IGEL endpoints. It's just now packaged separately, but certainly you get IGEL OS, which resides on the endpoint, and it's our Linux-based software, extremely secure, super flexible, very, very quick at staying at pace with the primary virtual endpoint clients from the likes of VMware and Citrix and Microsoft. Also very good at staying at pace with the leading peripheral vendors, all the latest protocols. So one real advantage here with IGEL OS is that unlike some of the real proprietary endpoint software, this stays in lockstep with the very latest release of all of our 80 plus technology partner vendors. So you don't have to wait months and months and months for the next version to be able to support the latest version of software from your single sign-on vendor or from your peripheral vendor. It includes, obviously, UMS, which resides on the server for that great end-to-end management, so nothing new there. That stays the same. But what we've done is we have packaged with IGEL OS and UMS 3 key capabilities that we now see as table stakes in the enterprise. The first of which is the multimedia codec pack. Well, let's face it, it's 2019. there's no excuse for not having a great user experience on an endpoint. You know, there was this traditional view of this where you'd say, oh, so-and-so is a task worker. Well, guess what? Lots of task workers have to go through video training, right? Most companies now have some form of unified communications all the way down to all their employees. So it's really important. We see this as a no-brainer. Let's make sure we have a great user experience. On the server side, with UMS, we are providing HA in this package because we believe that, especially as you grow, the larger enterprises, if you've got many hundreds or thousands of endpoints, most will opt for the HA functionality just to make sure that they never lose touch of managing their endpoint estate. And then the other thing that we're adding here as part of this SKU is our management interface. Doug mentioned this briefly earlier. This is a REST API. This allows for seamless integration of our system with others already resident within enterprises that are either being used for management or reporting. Maybe it's a trouble ticketing system or something else where you want to be able to programmatically exchange information between the IGEL system, if you will, and a resident system already in your enterprise. So this makes it pretty simple, standard interface using REST, which is the de facto standard now for APIs. So this is it. That's Workspace Edition. And this really is the software that makes for a killer endpoint, a killer IGEL managed, super thin, super secure, software-defined endpoint. Now, and by the way, you know, you get these capabilities at roughly the cost. It's just the price of this is modeled after buying hardware and software for a UD3. So if you've been buying UD3s in the past, the price of this combined with the hardware, because the hardware goes down in price now since it's sold separately, after 3 years of paying software maintenance, you have spent about the same amount of money. So I mentioned software maintenance. This is what you need to acquire now to ensure that you get updates and upgrades in the next version of software, right? Version 11, 11.x, 11.y, version 12, etc. You do need to be on software maintenance. Also, software maintenance ensures that you have the license roaming capability. Without software maintenance, your licenses are stuck on a specific endpoint. Now, along with the upgrades and updates, with software maintenance, you also get support. Basic support, we call it select support, and that gives you the ability to call in issues. It gives you web, email, and phone support. You get a basic response within 3 business days. It's your basic ground level support, if you will, but you get that with maintenance at no extra cost. If you'd like greater levels of support, which means essentially better hours of coverage and faster response time, kind of a shorter, more narrow response window, we offer priority support, which also allows our engineers to remotely access any device in question, and even greater level of support in something we call Priority Plus. Think of this as the classic good, better, best, small, medium, and large, right? So whatever level of support you need based on your enterprise and how you run your business, and this is, by the way, at customer demand, we now offer this classic suite of support services. And it might look very familiar to what you might see from other world-class software providers. This is really, you know, customers have been asking for this for some time, and now we have that with IGEL OS 11. And these support agreements can span either 1, 3, or 5-year options based on how long you want to sign up for the support service. Finally, the third SKU, the second product SKU, is what we call the Enterprise Management Pack. And what this does is it adds more value via UMS extensions to give you even more capability on a subset of your IGEL-powered endpoints. And the real kind of driving feature behind this package is the first one, which is you're probably familiar with the IGEL Cloud Gateway, right? Which gives you the ability to manage remote devices, off-network devices, traveling users, home users without a VPN, without requiring a VPN connection. So this is included here. We also include a lot of other products, some pretty popular, custom partition, right? If you want to create connectivity to something that's not in the standard release and have that be folded into future releases, we offer that capability. Maybe it's a new browser, etc. The shared workplaces allows you to enable an endpoint to accommodate different types of users, right? Think of a call center or maybe a university lecture hall or lab where you've got different types of users using the same equipment, same endpoint. We've got that capability to either provide more or less capability based on profile. You can track assets connected to your endpoints. You can fold in the management of Windows devices if you wish. We've got the mobile device management for Apple iOS devices. So it really takes other products that we have been offering for some time and folds them into this one SKU. And what's really nice about this is some of this stuff was offered on a 50 pack or a 10 pack or subscription or perpetual. It just all folds together. It's a single SKU. And you may not even use all these capabilities, but they are there at the ready if and when you decide you want to take advantage of this increased functionality. And this is a subscription. So for this, you just subscribe to have this capability on your subset of endpoints for 1, 3, or 5 years. Now, what we can also do, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but as you bring on more subscriptions over time, and you also have your software maintenance agreements, one thing that we can do for our customers as well is what we call coterming, to make sure that if you've got multiple subscriptions that you've purchased over time, to make life simpler, we can work with you guys to we call coterms, that they all end at the same time, making it easier to manage all this stuff. You guys are going to get a copy of this, and this is recorded. So this is a one-page cheat sheet on what I just said. So I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but I do give a little example. Typical scenarios, you're going to have Workspace Edition running on all of your IGEL managed endpoints, because that's what turns it into an IGEL managed endpoint. And then many of our users will opt for the enterprise management pack on a subset for those endpoints where they want the greater capability as a subscription. Not to be outdone, and absolutely not to be ignored, is the fact that we've got world-class hardware. We continue to improve it. We continue to put the latest chipsets in these things. Improving the form factors. We're going to be coming out with a cool-looking new UD2 in the May timeframe. So we are continuing to offer and will continue to offer the familiar, great IGEL branded endpoints. And a lot of customers we know will continue to want these because a lot of customers will want to have everything packaged together. So while it's great to be able to take our software and place it via license onto any compatible x86 device, a lot of you guys will say, hey, just give me the whole thing packaged together, and all I have to do is turn it on, right? Just grab the license from the pool and turn it on. So you can do that. Sorry about this. So yeah, we'll continue to keep offering. We've got very cool new, hardware platforms planned out for this upcoming calendar year on the roadmap. You'll hear more about these as they come closer to their own launches. But we'll continue to keep offering the great IGEL branded endpoint hardware. Now, given these new offer packages and the way that it's bundled, et cetera, it really is all about the licensing. So I mentioned the IGEL license portal. That came up and live in the October timeframe. And now with IGEL OS 11, those two together, we think, make a really strong combination to help make life easier for our IT endpoint administrators. So the way I like to look at this is if we take a short look down memory lane, prior to the IGEL licensing portal and with all those SKUs, it was very difficult for our customers to really understand the status of all their licenses, especially if they've been buying lots of software of different types from IGEL, right? It's sort of like when I first moved to California. I drove across the country with my brother, from New York State, and we drive across the country. And the first thing I wanted to see in California was the view of San Francisco from the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. So after driving for like 6 or 7 days, we go to the Golden Gate Bridge, we cross over, and we climb up to this really cool area where you can look back at the city. And this is what we saw. This is what we saw. We saw basically nothing. All we saw was clouds and fog. And it's not unlike kind of what our customers could see without that IGEL licensing portal with all those SKUs. So with the IGEL licensing portal, now you can look at the status of all of your licenses. But until IGEL OS 11, right, with all those SKUs, you could get a nice close-up view on, say, your IGEL OS. Then you can get a nice close-up view on your, cloud gateway. Then you can get a close view on your, your shared workplaces. You can get a close view on these other SKUs, but you'd have to do that individually. There was no kind of broad view of how all of your licenses were constructed and the status of those licenses. So with IGEL OS 11 now in the licensing portal, and yes, I do realize this is a different bridge. This is another view of San Francisco from across the Bay Bridge. But the concept here is now I can see it all. Because now that I've gone from 19 SKUs down to 2 product SKUs, and with the license portal, I can go in and with one quick view, I can see the status of all of my licenses. I can see how many licenses in my pool are used, how many are available. I can see the maintenance status of those licenses. So we believe now, life will become much more clearer and easier from an IT endpoint administrator standpoint relative to licenses. I mentioned pricing briefly. The best way to look at this is that the Workspace Edition pricing is modeled after what it would cost you to buy UDC, place it on an endpoint, and own it for 3 years. So if you buy the license, get software maintenance, you will have spent, after 3 years, roughly what it would cost you if you bought a UDC 3 license. The UD3 hardware plus software maintenance, if you go that route, you buy hardware from us. Again, after about 3 years, it would be similar to the price of Workspace Edition with software maintenance over 3 years. Enterprise Management Pack pricing is modeled after the IGEL Cloud Gateway. So based on the number of connections you would be buying on an IGEL Cloud Gateway, after 3 years, you will have spent about the same if you were to purchase the Enterprise Management Pack. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, I bought the IGEL Cloud Gateway in November, and I bought a bunch of UD3s in January. What's the deal? So I've already spent a lot of this money. Rest assured that we have put together a number of transition programs for our customers that recognize investment already made toward that capability within either Workspace Edition or Enterprise Management Pack. So you don't have to worry about us, about paying twice for the same capability. We've got programs in place that will essentially provide free software maintenance into April of 2020 if you bought last year, or even further if you buy this year, right? So we've spent a lot of time taking a long look at customers who have purchased product from IGEL from mid-2017 until now to make sure that we recognize investments already made as you transition from IGEL OS 10 to OS 11. That transition capability should be available sometime next month. The SKUs for OS 11 are available right now to download. And if you're looking for transition SKUs from OS 10 to OS 11, we plan to have them available within probably about the next 3 to 4 weeks is the time frame we're looking at. And then again, software license roaming is another value-added capability that can help you further save money by taking full advantage of candidate endpoints that you can turn into IGEL managed endpoints. A lot of you might have more questions on the pricing. Our SEs and salespeople and account managers are well armed with information on this. And we may even go over through some of this in the Q&A, which will be coming up in just a few minutes. We're wrapping up right now. So what does all this mean, right? So we've got these new SKUs, we've got these new capabilities, we've got license roaming, et cetera. We've got these new support offers. Well, prior to IGEL OS 11, I'm hoping most of us agree that IGEL's reputation has been built on simplicity. Simple, smart, and secure, correct? Certainly simple to try at the top right via the easy web download, which continues to exist. Now you can download OS 11. Easy to integrate because you can load it onto any x86 device, which can save you tons of money from a hardware perspective. Easy to operate. The UMS is known for its simplicity, known for its scalability. It's literally a single IT administrator can manage tens of thousands of these endpoints from a single console. And then easy to manage, right? So from this single console, you can manage devices on network or off from the UMS. However, what we think was happening now with OS 11 is that with OS 11, we think we're making it easier to buy. Now, if you've been buying nothing but quote unquote thin clients from us, it'll be very similar. But if you have acquired other products like the AIT or it's alphabet soup here, ICG or the shared workplaces, IMI, all these other products, basically now we have them down into 2 product SKUs plus maintenance for a total of 3 SKUs. So the acquisition process should be quite simple. And then finally, a little bit easier to own, right? With the ability to make sure you've got the perpetual license on all of your endpoints. That means they never stop running, right? It's certainly if I have an IGEL managed endpoint in a hospital emergency room, we want to make sure that thing never stops. But if you want the upgrades and updates, you get the maintenance, but also the subscription capability on the value-added UMS extensions. You can pick and choose where you want to place those. You can pick and choose the duration of those subscriptions, and then with the moving licenses, you can actually move them to other designated endpoints. So availability. We announced this earlier in the month at the Disrupt event in Munich, and it is available now. You can go to igel.com and download the software, test it out if you wish. The SKUs are live, and again, the transition SKUs from OS 10 to 11 should be available next month. So this is the last slide, really just kind of summarizing, what we've been known for. We think we've actually increased the advantage you get from a capital savings standpoint with the roaming license capability to take advantage of even more candidate endpoints. The operational savings that you get from the ease by which you can acquire the technology, and also the ability to choose the appropriate maintenance and support options. And then certainly from a security standpoint, that's kind of, I guess, as I said before, it's pretty much in our veins. Every release of IGEL OS, there are typically some extra security capabilities built under the covers, and then our ecosystem of partners in the areas of single sign-on, in the areas of multi-factor authentication, et cetera, continue to grow. So with that, Doug, I think we've got maybe 10 or 11 minutes if we want to continue the discussion in the form of a Q&A.
Dan, we have a bunch of questions already, and guys, thank you so much, Dan. That was a great webinar. Please, guys, use the questions piece. We have a slew already, but if you have any questions, dreams, aspirations, or what have you, And then when we're all said and done, we will tell you where to go to register to win this the Tesla. I keep wanting to say Tesla, this new Porsche. So let's start with the questions. So how can we install the IGEL OS on non-IGEL devices, example laptops, only via IGEL UDC UDP, or will there be an alternative methods, for example, software distribution through the UMS?
Well, so the way software would be, loaded onto endpoints is no different than the way it's being done today, right? So you will acquire some licenses for Workspace Edition. So the step one is acquire Workspace Edition licenses. Then what you will do is you go onto your IGEL licensing portal. From that, you establish a connection to the UMS. And then from the UMS, you basically, and it's through a token exchange, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, Doug, you would basically just assign those licenses to any endpoint you want. We will also continue to offer UD Pocket, which essentially will have Workspace Edition on it, right? So UD Pocket is the other way of doing this if you want to turn a device temporarily into an IGEL managed endpoint, either way. So the mechanism by which, think of it as, in the old days, you'd put UDC on a device, right? UDC 3 most recently, just replace that with Workspace Edition, but the mechanism itself doesn't change. I hope that
helps. The naming changed, but the products themselves are pretty much the same. It's just a little bit more verbose and the roaming and how we deal with the licensing. And this is the next question goes along the same lines: is UDC Converter end of sale? And no, but the name has changed. Dan, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, the plan is that the UDC Converter name has changed. It's just Workspace Edition. Now, IGEL OS 10 will officially, so just substitute Workspace Edition for UDC, right? Now, it's just a name change as we go from 10 to 11. Now, if you want to acquire OS 10 for a while, we'll continue to sell that until May 15th. After May 15th, the plan is, if you want that functionality, right? You want IGEL OS and you want UMS and you want to buy that, then you would acquire Workspace Edition as IGEL OS 11.
Perfect. You know what we need is a document explaining the old names converted to the new names. That'd be something fun to build.
Yeah.
And then and then another question is, was IGEL, when will OS 10 be announced as EOL? And I think he just answered that. That was May what again?
May 15th, and then certainly supported, right, for 3 years after that.
Absolutely. That's the IGEL way.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting, when will OS 11 stable be released? I think that's more of a Linux type of deal, right?
OS 11 what? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second part of that.
Stable be released. All of our products are stable, I would say.
Yeah, no, OS 11 is downloadable today, and it's stable. Otherwise, it would not be downloadable.
Absolutely. IGEL quality. No. Will you send us this presentation? Absolutely. When we're all said and done, this is being recorded. I will post the recording. I'll send it out to everyone who registered, and I will also, if Dan, it's okay with Dan, send the PowerPoint too. So you guys will definitely get all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and you'll post this in the community as well, right, Doug?
You bet. We'll post in the community. We'll post it on igel.com, and then it'll be all over social. So if you guys miss it, then you're not looking. But we'll definitely get it, and we'll send it to everyone who registered into your inbox too. So it'll be all over the place for sure. Can a customer sell some of its licenses to another customer / company?
I don't think so. I mean, if has that ever happened before? I don't think so. So I mean,
yeah, that's sort of like, I mean, you can't. That's what's interesting about software licensing. You don't actually own it. You lease the software. If you read your ULIS quite quite closely that Bill Gates gave us that, or his father did. We lease software, so it can't be sold. Now we do have MSP licensing. So if it's something like if you're wanting to resell a service, so to speak, you can reach out to us and we can talk to you about that. But if you own a license, you can't go ahead and resell that to someone else like secondhand. It's just software that nobody does that, I don't believe.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool is that the licenses can roam from one targeted endpoint to another, but it would still be within that same enterprise, within that same kind of customer ID.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. How does this affect the cloud gateway licensing? Will they be pooled as well? You can address or talk about the enterprise pack and how and how that works with the workspace, and how you can add the differences and what have you.
Yeah, so that cloud gateway functionality will be very similar. It's just packaged in with what we call the enterprise management pack. So the way this works is to turn any device into an IGEL managed endpoint, you have to start with Workspace Edition because that has IGEL OS and UMS in it. So that sets the foundation. That's a perpetual license. You own it forever, and you can place that on any device you want and move it from one device to the other if you're on software maintenance. If you want to have the cloud gateway functionality, that functionality is priced similarly within the enterprise management pack. So based on the number of connections, that price will be influenced, right? But that's a subscription. So you will, based on how many connections you need, it's just similar to the way you're buying cloud gateway today. Your price for the enterprise management pack will vary based on how many connections you want, just like today with the cloud gateway function. It's just packaged inside this thing we call the enterprise management pack, which also has some other capabilities packaged into it as well.
Perfect. And one of our attendees made a great comment to your question is what is the difference between the chickens, and he said, or the similarities between the chickens, Dan, and he said they are both yellow. I got a kick out of that. That was a good answer.
Yeah, and hopefully very tasty and nutritious as well.
You got it. You got it. IGEL is very tasty, but please do not saute if you get the inside joke. The next question is, can OS 5, OS 10, and OS 11 coexist in the same UMS console?
No, OS 10 and OS 11 can, but not OS 5. So it's kind of the plus one environment that we're looking at. So you can have OS 11, and that console can manage endpoints running OS 11 or OS 10, but nothing previous to OS 10.
Here's an interesting one, and I don't know if you want to take this. I'd love to hear the answer, though. Just a ballpark cost per device to convert a PC to a thin client. For example, software plus maintenance, so I can compare to a Windows-based fat thin client or fat client.
Yeah.
That's hard because it really all depends, right? There's so many variables when you're talking about pricing. That it's almost impossible to give you a ballpark or an example. Everything's a little bit unique, right? Is that a fair answer, Dan?
Yeah, I think what you can look at is the ongoing maintenance that you would pay every month typically runs in the 20s of dollars per device, somewhere around there. Think around 25 bucks plus or minus. There's that portion of it, which is your ongoing. And then you would need to look at what the price of the Perpetual Workspace Edition is. And then you'd have to also figure out whether or not you're buying hardware. But so unless we see a specific configuration, I'd rather, I think it's probably caused more damage than good to try to make guesses at this point.
Yeah. Exactly. Well said.
Again, what I said was, as before, in general, the pricing is modeled to be similar, right, in terms of overall investment after 3 years of software maintenance to what customers have been buying to date to get like a UD3 or a UDC 3 license.
You got it. And you definitely also have to look at the cost of maintaining a fat client, right? So maybe you can buy a really cheap thin client or fat client somewhere, but the cost of maintaining it is through the roof. And with IGEL, that cost is just part of the price of the product, right? Maintaining it is simple, easy, secure, blah 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 blah. So there's so many variables to that question that it's difficult to answer in this.
Yeah, I mean, look at the cost of maintaining Windows 10 endpoints. Just think of that. Yeah. Now think of the cost of maintaining 800 of those or 2,000 or 10,000 of those, as opposed to having Windows in your data center and having 10,000 of these things managed from the UMS, right? So it's hard to put an actual number on that.
Yeah, you got it. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think we're working on an ROI tool, or we have one. The best thing there is reach out to one of our sales folks, reach out to anyone at IGEL, and we can get you in touch and we can start going down that path. But at the end of the day, what we're offering is so much exponentially cheaper, more secure, flexible, manageable than anything you can do with a fat client today. And unless, of course, you convert that fat client to an IGEL OS client. And then it's just about the hardware, and the hardware doesn't matter at that point.
Yep.
See, we're just 1 minute over time. I'm looking to see if there's any really juicy ones there. I mean, every one of these are good.
We'll retain the log, right, Doug? So we can answer these.
You got it. So let's do this. We're at the top of the hour. It'll take me a little bit of time to even figure out that there's so many verbose questions, and you guys took the time to write them. We will definitely take the time to answer them. So I have one more thing I promised you, and that is, how do you win this Porsche? So please head to igel.com/IGEL Challenge Everything -contest, or just head to igel.com. You'll see a big picture of a Porsche on the screen somewhere. Click that. And then you're going to need a code. And by attending this webinar, you qualified for the Porsche. Now you need to just put the code in. The code is OS11 webinar. Again, that's OS11 webinar. And the last thing I want to share with you guys is I talked about the IGEL community. We do have a nice website, igelcommunity.com, and there's a great resources page. So if you're new to IGEL, it's a great place to find a slew of resources. But also there's a document on there I think that you guys might enjoy reading if you have not already. And it's called something to the nature of IGEL, What's New in IGEL Software Suite 2019. It's at the very top of the screen. So please go ahead and download that. I'll provide a link within the email I send out. But it's a nice little 18-page doc explaining. I wrote it, and it'll explain everything Dan talked about, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But it'll give you another great example of what's new, what's changed, and also what has not changed, which I think is one of the most important pieces. There's a lot of changes, but more or less things stay the same too. So on that note, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Amazing job. Guys, thank you so much for attending. For the people listening to the recorded version that were unable to attend, thanks to my snafu and not seeing that we only had 1,000, or we had 1,000 registered, but not 1,000 that could join, which makes no sense to me. I apologize to you. I hope the recorded webinar was good. If you have any questions, please send those to me directly, brown@igel.com. I'll get you answers. Post them to community. Smoke signals works too. Dan's fluent in those. And on that note, I'll give it to Dan to say the last word. But thank you guys all so much, very much, for attending this webinar and supporting IGEL Technologies.
Yeah, thanks, Doug, and thanks everyone for attending. And this is an ongoing process, so we're happy to entertain any questions within the community as they come forth. And we'll look forward to doing more of these in the future to keep you guys up to date as we continue to kind of, add to and embellish and improve the overall products for you guys. So thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And join.igelcommunity.com. Again, join.igelcommunity.com.